Hey guys, what's going on? It's Daitooka and welcome back to the channel. It's great to have you guys back. Today, we're going to be covering Kazuya's best punishment tools. Now, I made a video like this one for Devil Jin back when Tekken 8 first came out, and I thought, why not make one for Kazuya as well, because he is one of my main characters. I really love playing Kazuya. Kazuya is one of the best characters in the game when it comes to punishment on block, so learning these and understanding how they work best is going to be amazing for your own gameplay. We're going to start off with Kazuya's standing punishment. So, starting at anything that's minus 10 on block, you want to use Kazuya's amazing 10 frame strings, which are 1-1-2 and 1-2-2. Starting off with 1-1-2. 1-1-2 is basically a 3-hit jab string, which is hit confirmable after the first 2 hits. It is a knockdown string which gives you decent damage as well on hit. It is 23 damage for the full string on regular hit and allows for a full knockdown. You can sort of see all this sliding on hit. It really allows you to continue your offense afterwards to go for some sort of mix-up. That's the main intention of this move on hit. So just keep in mind, 1-1-2 is for continued mix-up. Just a quick sort of bonus thing about 1-1-2. 1-1-2 actually has a heat sort of variation. So whilst you're already in heat, you can actually have access to a higher damage version of 1-1-2, which uses a little bit of your heat bar. Keep that in mind. But it basically is a 10 frame 31 damage string. Now, for the cost of some heat, this is pretty decent, especially if you want to finish out a round or just get some decent damage whenever you really feel like using it. 1-1-2 into hold forward is really good whilst you're in heat. So just to sort of clarify how you do this, whilst you're already in heat, 1-1-2, and you have to hold forward before you press the 2. If you're not holding forward before the 2, this throw animation won't come out. So just press 1-1-2 and hold forward as you're doing so. Another thing to keep in mind with 1-1-2 is that although it is really good on hit, this is really bad on block. It's minus 17, so you don't really want to use this move at the wrong time, or, you know, not really be careful with hit confirming this move. You want to really practice getting used to recognizing that the first 2 jabs have connected before you let the third one rip, because if you don't do so, and, you know, you get your string blocked, you're going to die to a big launcher. The next one we're going to talk about at 10 frames is 1-2-2. 1-2-2 is Kazuya's sort of 10 frame punishment string, which is more oriented for A, a little bit more damage, but B, if you want to continue some standing offense. So 1-2-2 on hit is +4, allowing for some sort of frame traps to potentially occur afterwards, or if you just want to sort of keep the pressure on, +4 is decent to sort of maintain your pressure, maybe go for a mix-up afterwards. Keep in mind, 1-2-2 is actually -12 on block, so if you're not too careful with this move, you can unfortunately cop a bit of a punish there, but it's nothing too much to worry about. Moving up to 11 frames, we're going to talk about Kazuya's back 1-2. Kazuya is a character that has access to 11 frame punishment, which is kind of rare in Tekken, I would say. Most characters really have sort of usable punishment at 10 and, you know, then following at 12 frames. Kazuya actually has a really good punishment tool at 11 frames, which is really good for him. Back 1-2 is a really nice knockdown tool with some really good damage. It's 30 damage. It does also wall splat depending on how close you are to the wall, allowing for a continued combo afterwards. Just keep in mind that this is -14, so be careful when you throw this out. You would want to be sure that what you're punishing is -11, so this one will require some practice to use. Next up at 12 frames, we're going to talk about Kazuya's 1+2. 1+2 is really good in terms of the damage. It's 25 damage, it's pretty decent. It will also wall splat the opponent depending on how close you are to the wall. Just keep in mind though that 1+2 is -13, so again, you can cop a decent punish for this one. Next up at 13 frames, things get a little bit spicy for Kazuya, honestly. This is really when you start to get some juicy damage. We'll start off with the sort of least impressive tool at 13 frames, which is Kazuya's Tsunami Kick. So Tsunami Kick is a 13 frame mid string. It is basically an axe kick. This one does sort of okay damage. It is also hit confirmable in standing state, just keep that in mind. The main sort of drawback with this one is that even on hits, it's -4, so it's really hard to continue your offense because you are slightly at a disadvantage. The other sort of disadvantage about this one is that it is launch punishable on block, so be careful with this one. If you're not careful with punishing this, depending on the circumstance, you can get launched for it, but sometimes it's pretty good to use just as a nice sort of 13 frame mid-check, punishing the opponent. If you're not 100% sure, you can just look for the hit. If it hits, follow up with a follow-up 4 input, and you get some decent damage, and you don't really lose your turn if you use this move. Now, whilst down forward 4-4 isn't a sort of amazing move, down back 1-2 really is. It's one of Kazuya's new moves for Tekken 8. It is a 13 frame punish tool, which also goes straight into heat as a heat engager on hit, allowing for a really good continued offense into, all of Kazuya's heat moves, really any sort of pokes you want to go for afterwards. It's a really good tool for punishing anything that's minus 13 for some decent chunky damage into, amazing offensive tools. This is a really good tool to use if you want to A, go into heat, and B, if you want to punish something that's minus 13. Down back 1-2 whilst you're already in heat will knock down for a guaranteed grounded hit, such as forward 4, as follows. You get 43 damage for 13 frames is really good. This really requires almost no execution, really easy to do. It's a really great tool that he has. Now, some people may, roll their eyes because I'm including this here, but Electric Wind God Fist is technically speaking accessible at 13 frames with Kazuya. It's really good to have a character that does have access to a 13 frame launcher, but the fact of it being a 13 frame launcher does mean that it does come with a drawback, and the drawback is that it is extremely difficult to do. This is a advanced to even an elite level tool and sort of technique that is really, really hard to learn. I've done this before many times in matches. That's come after hours and hours and hours of practice and experience, and I've even done this in tournament before. I've launched things at minus 13 with electric. It's a really good feeling once you can block punish something that's minus 13 with an electric, because you just get access to the sheer damage that comes with an electric. But just keep in mind that doing an electric as quick as possible at 13 frames is really difficult. It requires the perfect input, so that's 13 frames quick as possible, the 13 frames quick electric. And again, it's really difficult. Don't feel sort of bad on yourself if you can't do this for a very long time. It takes a long time to learn this technique, but I wanted to point this out because it is technically possible, and it's something to look forward to as you do improve as a player with Kazuya. Moving up to 15 frames, you guessed it, we have electric once again. Unfortunately, Kazuya doesn't have access to anything like an easy 15 frame launcher, such as a generic down forward 2 or a hop kick. This is where electric is really important to learn to use at 15 frames to get the best damage that you can. However, Kazuya has access to other 15 frame punish tools, which we'll talk about here. First up is Kazuya's down forward 1-2. This is a 15 frame heat engager, which is pretty good on hit. Chunky damage, it's 31 damage on hit, again allowing for that same heat situation that we were talking about earlier. Down forward 1-2 is really good whilst you're already in heat, as it actually differs to down back 1-2 in that it actually becomes a full launcher if you decide to spend your heat and use a heat dash there. You can get into some really nice, snazzy, and sort of nice damage combos there. That one isn't even near the potential of this move on hit as a heat dash, but just keep that in mind that this move is really good depending on the sort of situation you want to go for afterwards. Down forward 1-2 is really good for A, going into heat, B, launching whilst you're already in heat, and C, just sort of getting some decent chunky damage on regular hit as well. That was prior to the introduction of the next move I'm going to talk about, which is down forward 1-4. Down forward 1-4 was already in Tekken 8 on release, however this was just a sort of ballerina spin when the second hit connected here. However, they did change this to now become a sort of easy 15 frame punish tool, which is meant to sort of offset the use and need of a hop kick. You really want to use this if you sort of just want some guaranteed damage at 15 frames, which is basically more like a mini combo. You use down forward 1-4 as a 15 frame punish, you get access to a grounded guaranteed hit, where you can get something like a forward 4, or alternatively you can go for something like a stomp, That one is probably max damage. It's 51 damage. 51 damage off of something like this is really good. Just keep in mind that the second hit is A, duckable, and B, it's minus 11 on block. So if you're playing against a Kazuya, they can 1-1-2 you back, or even do a back 1-2 if they're looking for this move. So to all the beginners out there, I would say at 15 frames, focus on using down forward 1-4 as your 15 frame punish. For anyone that's, you know, getting better at the game, slowly improving with Kazuya and wanting to advance their skills, use electric and start to practice using electric. So now we're going to move on to Kazuya's while standing punishment, which is just as good, if not better, than his standing punishment, I guess, relative to the rest of the cast. First up, at 11 frames, we have Kazuya's Tsunami Kick. He has the same move that he has at while standing, the down forward 4-4 that we talked about earlier, but it is in a while standing format. The main difference, though, to the standing version is that it does give you slightly better damage. It's 29 damage versus 26. Same frames and same situation on hit and block for this one. So on hit, it's -4. You're sort of losing a turn. And on block, it is once again launch punishable at -15. So just be careful with this one, but reserve this one for your -11 lows. You just want to get some decent chunky damage on. 29 damage for 11 frames is really good in Tekken 8. So get used to using this one for your -11 lows that you're blocking. Next up, we're going to talk about one of the best while standing launchers in the game, which is Kazuya's Twin Piston. Kazuya's Twin Pistons is a 13 frame while standing launcher. So while standing 1-2. Unfortunately in Tekken 8, this move was nerfed so that it actually instantly spends the tornado or the screw or bound, depending on what game you're coming from. And now the sort of combo format is slightly different than it used to be beforehand, because you used to be able to follow up with a pretty much instant 3-1-4. Nowadays you have to sort of modify the combo that you're going for depending on, say, the sort of damage you're going for, how close the wall is. But really, this move is really good as a 13 frame while standing punisher. The fact that it launches is just really good. It's a really great move to have in this game, especially because a lot of characters' sort of nice low pokes tend to be around that 13 frame mark. So being able to launch something that is -13 on a blocked low is just amazing to be able to launch from. And, you know, getting something like 70 damage just because someone did, you know, a down back 4, let's just say Jin does a down back 4, and you block it, getting 70 damage is pretty good. So get used to using this one as a while standing punisher for -13 lows. Just for your consideration though, just bear in mind that it's -12 on block. Twin Pistons is really good to launch opponents that either use a low poke, which is -13, or at least -13, or moves that are mid that leave you force crouch in a +13 state. Next up, Kazuya actually skips 14 and 15 frame launch punishment tools, and he goes all the way up to 16 frames. Now, this is sort of a double-edged sword, because while standing 2 with Kazuya at 16 frames is really good, and it has a really nice property to it, in fact, that it is homing. However, for the sake of punishment, it's unfortunate to not have a sort of consistent 15 frame while standing punisher with Kazuya. That's where sort of Twin Piston is really the only option you have in anything from 14 and 15 frames. At 16 frames and up, however, you have access to Kazuya's while standing 2, which is his Demon God Fist. This is in fact my favorite move with Kazuya. Just every time you hit your opponent with this move, it's just, you can just feel it in your soul. It's just amazing hit sparks, amazing crumple stun animation. It's just an amazing tool. However, as you saw there, please keep in mind that this is very launch punishable. It's -18 on block, so most people that know to look out for this move and to launch it will launch you for this. A lot of low level players do confuse this with down forward 2 sometimes, but just be careful. Don't throw this out too much. However, anything that's at least -16 or higher, particularly your sort of stagger blocks like a Hell Sweep, you will want to use while standing 2 to launch this for your max damage. I feel like I've just talked about electric in this video more than any of other moves in this in this video that we've covered today. But also keep in mind that Kazuya technically has access to electric from a crouching state. This is done a lot easier with him because you don't actually have to crouch cancel with him. However, whilst you're crouching, and let's just say you've blocked something like a Hell Sweep, you can just press forward and go for an electric. So I've set up Paul here to go for the Demo Man. I will demonstrate the crouch cancel technique. So blocking the Demo Man, I'm blocking by pressing down back, or you can press down, but I usually press down back. You just press forward and do your regular electric input. You are going to mess this up as you're practicing this, but this is actually a really good way to sort of practice this tool. You want to get used to recognizing the stagger block animation, then practice blocking, pressing forward, and then your full electric motion. I might as well mention, since, you know, it tends to be, you know, other Mishima players that watch this video, with other Mishimas such as Devil Jin or Heihachi or even regular Jin, you can do the same thing by just blocking, tapping up, and then going for your electric input. So block, tap up, electric. Block, tap up, electric. Block, tap up, electric. This is the sort of timing that you're going for with this move. So that just about does it for today's video. I hope you learned something today, and ideally, you know, maybe rewatch this video and take some notes if you didn't already. But this information is really helpful. If you use this in your own matches and, you know, use this in practice mode when you're sort of learning how to block certain moves, what moves are punishable from the characters that you start to face, you can really start to maximize your damage output with Kazuya, which is just absolutely paramount with his character. This character really profits from A, maximizing the damage when the opportunity comes, and B, disencouraging your opponent from, you know, pressing unsafe moves which tend to be quite scary to come up against. I do upload gameplay content on here as well from my streams and even off-stream sessions, so make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of my uploads. Thanks again for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later. Thanks.